The summons from the Galactic Council had gone out like a ripple across the stars. Every species must send its best warrior. A demonstration of unity, strength, and peace, though everyone knew it was really a contest of dominance disguised as diplomacy. Across 100 worlds, champions trained. On death worlds, clans held duels. On hive planets, soldier broods were selected. On psionic moons, minds sharpened until the surface cracked with resonance. When it came time for humanity to choose, they formed committees, called in experts, and then quietly realized something uncomfortable. No one actually wanted to go. Facing the galaxy's apex predators in ritual combat sounded heroic until you remembered that most of them could bench press small vehicles or cut stone with their claws. And so, when the human defense assembly hesitantly asked for volunteers, the room stayed silent. Except for one voice. A calm, almost bored. "I can do it." Mara Trent stepped forward like she was volunteering to carry groceries, not represent her entire species in combat against the galaxy's elites. No powered armor, no augmentation, no intimidation aura. Just a compact, athletic build and eyes that showed a strange mixture of serenity and calculation. The officials tried to discourage her. "You understand these aren't sparring matches. You'll be facing Deathworld apex species. This isn't a symbolic event. They will try to kill you." Mara only smiled. "I know. That's why I'm going." Her confidence didn't feel arrogant. It felt earned, like she knew something they didn't. Within the week, she was on a council transport, the only human aboard, surrounded by alien warriors who towered, shimmered, snarled, and radiated power. They looked at her with confusion first, then amusement. A tiny Deathworld biped, soft skin, no claws, no carapace, no bioluminescent threat display. One Kraghnor champion leaned down and rumbled. "Little mammal, did your people send you to entertain us?" Mara met his gaze without blinking. "No," she said softly. "I came to warn you." Just for a moment, something in her tone unsettled the entire group. But the moment passed, and the galaxy returned to laughing, completely unaware of the massacre fate had already scheduled in her name. The Galactic Council arena was not merely large. It was mythic. Carved into the surface of Varel Prime, it stretched for kilometers, ringed with floating platforms, reinforced energy barriers, and seats grown directly from the living stone. Every race had shaped a part of it, a symbolic gesture of unity, which meant it was a place designed by dozens of species who all secretly wanted to show off. Colossal, intimidating, deadly. Mara stepped onto the transport dock as the starfield opened above her. Thousands of alien spectators filling the hovering tiers, their voices overlapping in a wall of sound. Some species hissed greetings, others drummed their limbs. Some simply emitted low-frequency vibrations that rattled the bones. From the human delegation platform, really just a small balcony, they watched Mara's arrival with growing dread. She looked so small against the grand scale of it all, a lone human silhouette walking toward a battlefield big enough to house a war. Council Herald Draction, a being made of crystalline plates and resonant light, floated forward to welcome the competitors. "May your strength honor your ancestors," he boomed, his voice echoing like a cathedral collapsing in slow motion. The alien champions gathered. The Kraghnor giant, skin like volcanic armor. A Cerati blade dancer, limbs jointed for impossible angles. A Vral psionic, surrounded by shimmering pressure waves. The Sithrax armored squad, their powered shells glowing with internal reactors. Each was the pinnacle of their species' warcraft. Each had trained since childhood. Each carried weapons or abilities that had ended real wars. And then there was Mara, standing calmly with her hands resting behind her back, as if she were at a casual inspection rather than the galaxy's deadliest proving ground. A few aliens tittered. Some jeered. One shouted something about mammals being soft. A commentator on a floating drone speculated humanity might be offering a symbolic surrender disguised as participation. Mara ignored all of it. She was scanning the arena, not with fear, with the cold efficiency of someone measuring threats, cover angles, material densities, and escape routes. When she finally spoke, it was to one of the human officers who had run up to her in a panic. "Do you have any last-minute requests? Tactical gear? Armor? Anything?" he asked breathlessly. Mara studied him for a beat. "Yes," she said. "I need whatever sidearm you brought." The officer blinked. It's just a compact field pistol. Low recoil. Civilian legal on half the colonies." "It's not. It's enough." She took the weapon, checked the chamber with swift familiarity, and holstered it under one arm. The officer swallowed hard. "Mara, if anything goes wrong, then it goes wrong for them," she said simply. Before he could reply, the arena lights shifted. A thunderous chord rippled through the air. Draxion's voice rose. "Begin the trial of species." The first challenger stepped forward. The ground trembled. The crowd roared. And Mara Trent exhaled, calm as a stone in deep water. The galaxy still believed she was prey. It was about to learn otherwise. The Kraghnor champion lumbered forward, each step shaking dust from the stone pillars embedded in the arena floor. Standing nearly 4 meters tall, plated in natural basalt-like armor, the giant was a walking fortress. He didn't roar. He didn't posture. He simply looked down at Mara. As though she were an insect, he had been instructed not to step on too hard. "Small one," he rumbled in a deep, tectonic voice, "I will end this quickly. Your bones are fragile. Your world kinder than mine." Mara tilted her head. Deathworld, born and raised. A ripple of surprise passed through the spectators. The Kraghnor paused. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed, a booming, cavernous sound that shook the dust loose from the rafters. "Even so," he said, raising his stone-plated fists, "your people do not fight giants." "Wrong kind of giants," Mara said. The horn sounded. The Kraghnor charged. He moved faster than something his size had any right to, faster than many humans could sprint. His fist alone weighed more than Mara's entire body. Spectators leaned forward, some already turning away, expecting to hear the crunch of a decisive, bone-powdering blow. But Mara wasn't there. She had moved the instant his muscles tensed, evading before the giant even lunged. His fist cratered the arena floor. Shock waves rippled outward. Mara slid to the side, boots tracing a tight arc. She didn't attack. She didn't counter. She studied him. Fast reflexes, the giant grunted, turning. "But you cannot flee forever." Wasn't planning to. She darted forward. The crowd gasped. Charging a Kraghnor was suicide. But Mara didn't aim for his torso or limbs. She aimed for the tiny gaps in his armor. Those small, vital weaknesses every species evolved without noticing. She moved in close. 3 steps. Shift of weight. Palm strike. Not to the body, but under the jaw, where the armor thinned to allow speech. The Kragnor's head snapped back. Not enough to injure him, but enough to disorient, force a shift in balance, make his weight work against him. Then Mara flowed under his arm, grabbed his wrist, dropped her stance, used his momentum, his mass, his speed. What followed was impossible. A human throwing a creature 4 times her size? Absurd. But in the arena, physics didn't care about pride. Leverage was leverage. Timing was timing. The giant hit the ground with a sound like a collapsing mine shaft. The arena shook. A shock wave rippled across the stands. The Kraghnor blinked up at the sky, dazed, pinned under his own weight. Mara exhaled. "Your world teaches strength," she said quietly. "Mine teaches survival." The arena fell silent, then erupted. Some cheered, some panicked, some shouted accusations of cheating, some frantically rewound drone footage to understand how she had done it. The Kraghnor slowly rose onto one knee, absorbing what had happened. And then he performed the deepest bow his people could offer without breaking the ground. "Mara Trent," he rumbled, voice resonant with respect. "You fight with the fury of a collapsing star. The trial continues." She nodded. "Next." The blade dancer stepped forward, 6 silver limbs unfolding like a living knife. The galaxy was just beginning to understand what it was dealing with. The Sarati blade dancer glided onto the arena floor with a grace that would have been beautiful if it weren't so lethal. Her 6 jointed limbs unfolded like polished ivory scythes, each tipped with a monomolecular edge sharp enough to slice atoms cleanly. She bowed, not out of respect, but tradition, her faceted eyes narrowing as she sized Mara up. "I'm Tsava of the Sarati Spiral," she hissed. "No creature with blood as warm as yours has ever seen my blades and lived." Mara rolled her shoulders, loosening her stance. First time for everything. A sharp trill swept through the arena. Sarati laughter, high and chime-like. The blade dancer's limbs blurred. The match began. Sava struck first, and the world became steel and motion. Blades swept in from impossible angles, overhead, from the side, beneath, behind. Limbs moving so fast they folded into afterimages, turning her entire body into a storm of shimmering arcs. Mara slid back, weaving through gaps barely wider than a finger. She did not block. She did not counter. She let the motion flow past her like water around stone. Aliens watching from the stands murmured in disbelief. She should be ribbons by now. How does a human dodge that? Sarati precision is absolute. But Mara wasn't relying on speed. She was watching patterns, micro delays in limb recovery, the fractional imbalance when Sava swapped from dominant blade to auxiliary, the predictable rhythm of a species that trained through rote sequence. Humans didn't evolve on predictable worlds. They evolved on chaos. Sava lunged forward, all 6 blades converging in a killing blossom. Mara stepped inside it. Gasps exploded across the stadium. It was death. It was suicide. It was a space barely large enough for breath. But humans were experts at surviving narrow margins. Mara dropped under the arc. Her palm flicked up, 2 fingers pressed against a nerve cluster beneath Sava's 3rd shoulder joint. The dancer froze, her entire body seizing for half a heartbeat. That was enough. Mara pivoted behind her, hooked a wrist, and pulled. 3 blades slammed into the arena wall in a shower of sparks as Sava crashed forward, limbs tangling, stance broken. Her shriek rattled the air. More shock than pain. Mara calmly tapped the back of the Sarathi's neck. "You telegraph your rotations," she said. "All 6 of them." The blade dancer froze. Her species was not accustomed to being understood, let alone countered. Slowly, rigidly, Sava turned her head to look at the human pinning her. Those faceted eyes, once smug, now held something much rarer. Respect and fear. Mara released her and stepped back. The Sarati bowed deeply, an honor usually reserved only for their own masters. "The Sarati spiral acknowledges your supremacy," Sava whispered. "If I had continued, you would have taken my life." Mara shrugged. "Only if you made me." The crowd roared, waves of sound rattling every energy barrier. 2 champions down, but the arena lights dimmed suddenly, shifting from white to a deep, ominous violet. The psionic had arrived, floating, silent, eyes glowing like dying suns. And unlike the others, it didn't look amused. The arena temperature dropped as the Vral psionic drifted forward, robes billowing as if underwater. Every spectator instinctively quieted. Even the rowdiest species knew better than to mock a mindwalker. Its voice bypassed the air entirely, slipping straight into consciousness like a cold whisper behind the eyes. "Human, your victories end here." Mara's pulse didn't change. She fought psionics before, just never one this powerful. The Vral's eyes brightened, twin coals of molten gold. "Your mind is fragile, filled with fear, pain, memories you pretend no longer hurt." A pressure wave rippled out from the psionic, strong enough to crack the arena tiles. Mara's boots slid an inch. But she didn't fall. She raised her chin. "Get out of my head. Gladly. After I crush your will." And then the assault began. Invisible force hammered her from all directions, like standing in a collapsing star. Mara's vision fuzzed at the edges. The crowd blurred. Her thoughts twisted, distorted by alien hands trying to pry them apart. The psionic floated higher, spreading its arms, amplifying the mental onslaught. Your species is loud, impulsive, violent. You cannot stand against this. Mara gritted her teeth. Her knees buckled once. The Vral pressed harder. Break, little mammal. Images flared in her skull. Training mishaps. Lost friends. Moments of failure. Nightmares she thought she'd outgrown. The psionic wasn't reading her mind. It was weaponizing it. Her breath hitched. The arena dimmed. But then, it felt something unexpected. A barrier. A hard one. A mental anchor shaped like iron chains and stubborn will. The Vral pressed harder, pushed deeper, and suddenly recoiled as if burned. Mara stepped forward. Here's the thing about humans, she said through clenched teeth. We break after the fight. The psionic froze. Mara's hand shot forward, grabbing its wrist. A useless gesture physically, but she wasn't aiming for the body. She was aiming for the mind. She locked eyes with it and pushed back, not as a trained telepath, but as a Deathworld creature whose entire evolution had been shaped by surviving terror. The Vral wasn't ready. In an instant, it was dragged into her surface thoughts. But instead of fear or pain, it found something far worse. Violence with purpose. Anger held on a leash. A lifetime of refusing to die. The psionic's glow sputtered. It tore backward, severing the link in panic. Mara exhaled sharply. Stay out. The Vral collapsed to one knee, trembling, mind overwhelmed not by psychic force, but by human resilience. It bowed its head. The Vral yielded. Your mind is unbreakable. The arena erupted into pandemonium. 3 champions defeated, but the trial wasn't over. The lights flared white, and the ground shook as a platoon of armored warriors marched in formation. The Sithrax, 12 soldiers, powered exosuits, heavy weapons, a small army. Mara cracked her neck. About time, she muttered. The arena doors groaned open, releasing a wave of metallic footsteps that rolled like thunder across the stone. 12 Sithrax troopers marched in perfect synchronization, their powered exosuits gleaming with reactor-lit veins. Each warrior stood 2 meters tall, even without armor. Inside the suits, they were towering metal titans. The crowd fell silent. Everyone knew what the Sithrax represented. Not a duel, not a challenger, a firing squad. Their commander stepped forward, armor embossed with tactical sigils. You have fought admirably, human, he boomed through his external speakers. But the trial of species is not about duels. It is about measuring a species' ability to handle overwhelming force. Mara raised a brow. 12 against 1? I thought this was a trial, not an execution. Our terms are approved by the Council, the commander replied. If you fall, it will not be dishonor, merely inevitability. Mara sighed. You really don't understand humans. The horn sounded. The Sithrax opened fire. Blue plasma bolts streaked across the arena in a coordinated net meant to atomize anything smaller than a tank. Stone pillars vaporized. The ground exploded in molten shards. Dust and fire engulfed the battlefield. Spectators leaned forward, some horrified, others smugly satisfied. No one could survive that. But when the dust settled, Mara was gone. A ripple of confusion passed through the squad. Their visors scanned. Their sensors hummed. Their targeting suites recalibrated. Too late. Mara dropped from above. A ruined pillar, blasted by their plasma, had given her height. She landed on the commander's back with a heavy metallic crack, jamming her borrowed sidearm directly into the armor's neural joint. One shot, a shower of sparks. The suit seized and collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. Before the others could retarget, she rolled off the body and sprinted toward the second trooper. Plasma fire chased her, melting the sand behind her heels. Mara dove under a blast, slid across scorched stone, and fired at the trooper's knee actuator. The armor buckled, sending the Sithrax crashing sideways into another soldier. Their weapons tangled, resulting in a wild arc of plasma that carved a molten trench through the arena wall. A third trooper lunged, activating a shock baton. Mara ducked under the swing, grabbed the trooper's wrist, and used the batten's momentum to flip the massive armored figure onto its back. The impact cracked the reactor casing. Sparks rained like blue fireworks. The crowd erupted in disbelief. The Sithraks were trained to fight armies. Yet this human was dismantling them one by one, not with overwhelming power, but with precision and battlefield reading their computers couldn't match. 3 suits down. The remaining 9 regrouped and formed a circle, closing in. Mara cracked her knuckles. Finally, she muttered, "You're taking me seriously." The circle tightened, weapons charged, but the arena suddenly flickered, lights dimming, a tremor shaking the ground beneath everyone's feet. A new presence was approaching, and the Sithraks' formation froze. Because even they weren't prepared for what came next. The tremor grew, subtle at first, then powerful enough to rattle armor plating and send dust drifting from the arena's highest rafters. The Sithraks' squad broke formation instinctively, their helmets snapping toward the northern gate. That gate wasn't supposed to open. Not during this phase. Not during any phase. Mara felt it before she saw it. A pressure in the air, thick and predatory, like the atmosphere right before a lightning strike touches ground. The arena lights flickered again. The crowd's murmuring turned into scattered screams as the reinforced blast door groaned, dented outward by something enormous behind it. Council Herald Draction suddenly appeared midair, radiant plates shuddering. This is not part of the trial. Security contained that gate. But containment was a fantasy. The metal buckled. Something pushed through, tearing a jagged opening with wet, scraping sounds. A claw emerged. Not mechanical, not armored, not natural. A hybrid horror of biological sinew woven with adaptive alloy, shifting in real time as if searching for the most efficient form to take. The spectators went silent. Then, the creature stepped through. It stood 3 meters tall, composed of reshaping armor bone and a semi-fluid neural mass pulsing beneath translucent plating. Its shape shifted with every breath, never settling, never stable, like a nightmare still choosing which features would kill best. A collective shudder ran through the audience. A council guard shouted, "Adaptive Devourer!" It escaped containment. Even the Sithraks backed away. Mara watched it carefully. So this is what the council's been hiding. The creature's head twisted toward her, senses sparking like lightning across its plates. It recognized motion, energy signatures, the distinct electric pattern of living prey. Then it roared, a multi-layered scream like metal scraping on bone and something alive screaming underneath. It lunged and tore a Sithrak's trooper in half as easily as snapping a dry branch. The others fired instinctively. Plasma bolts hit the creature's surface, burning small craters, which immediately sealed, the armor shifting composition to resist the next volley. "It's learning," Mara muttered. "Of course it's learning." Draxion's voice boomed across the arena. "All combatants evacuate. The trial is suspended. This creature cannot be allowed to." The Devourer fired a spike of hardened alloy straight into the floating herald. Draxion's luminous body shattered into light. Panic erupted, thousands scrambling, alarms blaring, security squads rushing in. The Devourer scanned the chaos. Its shifting eyes locked onto the strongest remaining energy signature. "Mara," she exhaled slowly. "Guess you're my problem now." The Sithrak's commander, injured but conscious inside his crippled suit, struggled to rise. "Human, you cannot face that alone." Mara slid her pistol into a fresh power cell. "I'm not planning to." She took a step toward the creature. Every alien in the arena held their breath. Because for the first time, they realized Mara Trent wasn't just surviving the trial. She was about to save every one of them. The Devourer crouched, its shifting musculature rippling like liquid metal preparing to strike. Its face split into jagged plates, forming a maw that wasn't designed to eat. It was designed to consume and adapt. Mara steadied her breath. The Sithrak survivors dragged themselves behind a shattered pillar. Human, don't engage. Fall back, the commander shouted, voice crackling through damaged speakers. This creature consumes abilities. Every attack makes it stronger. Mara gave a half smirk. Then I won't attack it the way you expect. The devourer lunged. Mara sprinted sideways, boots kicking up dust as she dove behind a broken slab of obsidian. The creature smashed into it, pulverizing the rock but narrowly missing her torso. Its limbs reconfigured, growing spikes for piercing. Mara fired once, not at its body, at the ground beneath it. The shot destabilized the cracked stone floor, and the devourer's weight sank into a growing fracture. The creature adapted instantly, reshaping its legs to climb free. Good, she thought. Adapt more. Show me your limits. She darted toward a fallen Sithrak's suit, tore open the emergency panel, and ripped out a sparking plasma regulator. The commander's voice boomed weakly. What are you doing? Improvising. She jammed the regulator into her pistol's induction port, supercharging it far beyond safe limits. The weapon hummed dangerously, almost ready to explode. Perfect. The devourer screeched and barreled toward her again, now moving twice as fast, its legs reforming into spring-like coils. Mara sprinted directly at it. Alien spectators gasped. The Sithrak's commander shouted. The crowd collectively stopped breathing. At the last possible second, Mara slid beneath the creature's body, firing upwards, but not at the torso. She aimed at the underside of its shifting armor plates, the tiny seam where its neural mass was exposed for microseconds as it restructured. The blast wasn't strong enough to kill it, but strong enough to make it adapt violently. The creature convulsed, armor plates rearranging, neural pathways re-threading in chaotic bursts. It stopped, shrieked, re-optimized. Shifts cascaded across its body like molten steel, cooling and reheating at once. And in that moment of instability, its regenerative matrix slowed, because adapting too fast meant overloading. Mara rose to her feet. Yeah, she muttered, I thought so. The devourer turned toward her again, form glitching, limb structure stuttering like a machine caught between commands. Its own strength was breaking its coherence. Now, she just needed something big enough to finish it. Her eyes snapped to the shattered remains of a Sithrak's shoulder cannon, still attached to a half-crushed suit, reactor whining but operational. She sprinted. Behind her, the devourer gave chase, claws raking trenches into the arena floor. Mara dove, skidding across the stone, grabbing the cannon, ripping its manual trigger cable free. The creature leapt. Mara planted her feet, braced the weapon, and aimed directly into its open, shifting maw. End of adaptation. She fired. A blast of reactor-charged plasma engulfed the devourer's head. The creature thrashed in agony, its internal systems unable to reconfigure fast enough to survive simultaneous destruction and overload. Its neural core flickered, glowed, ruptured. The devourer collapsed in a heap of liquefying alloy and dissolving tissue. Silence. The entire arena stared. At Mara, at the corpse, at the impossible. She lowered the cannon, chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. Then she said the sentence that would echo across half the galaxy. Next time you lock something away, don't skimp on the door. The Sithrak's commander bowed his helmeted head. The survivors whispered one phrase. Human, protector. But the trial wasn't over. Because the council, scattered, shaken, had one last decision to make. Across the galaxy, stories spread like solar winds. Fast, bright, and impossible to contain. But the tale of Mara Trent, the quiet human who walked alone into an arena of legends and walked out undefeated, didn't just spread. It embedded itself into the collective memory of entire civilizations. On Vorth Prime, children reenacted her stance, feet grounded, shoulders relaxed, eyes calm as still water. On the crystalline moons of AR Keth, scholars debated whether humanity's strange blend of compassion and ferocity represented a new evolutionary advantage. Even the Kraghnor, who had never once admired another species' warrior, carved her likeness into a stone monolith, honoring the one who showed them mercy. What Mara didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that her performance hadn't just unified admirers. It had frightened others. In the shadowed reaches beyond the Council's influence, warlords and remnants of dead empires whispered her name like a warning. If one human could do this, what could an army do? What could a planet of them unleash? But Mara herself didn't revel in fear or fame. She returned to her ship, dropped her bag on the metal floor, and sat quietly. She hadn't fought to dominate. She hadn't fought to impress anyone. She fought because someone had to show the galaxy what humanity really stood for. Strength without cruelty, power without arrogance, determination without hatred. When she gazed out the viewport at the spinning constellations, she didn't see enemies. She saw possibilities, worlds that had never met a human before, worlds where she might help, teach, or simply listen. The Council would talk for centuries about the day a Deathworld Girl forced them to rewrite their assumptions. But Mara never cared about rewriting anything. She cared about forging something new. Connections, alliances, futures where humanity wasn't feared but respected. On that quiet ship, drifting among stars, Mara whispered the words that would one day become a creed. Be kind when you can. Be strong when you must. Be human always. And in the deep silence of space, the galaxy listened.